The new act has started, and we are back on the hype train for the next Valorant agent. Like usual, we already have a lot of speculation and a couple of fake leaks. And of course, you already know I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I have a couple of thoughts I've been putting together for a while now. And even though we've only seen 5 seconds of the new agent, I'm very excited about what I think their role will be. The new agent's going to be releasing in the new act. This is pretty typical for agents. Even though it's the beginning of the episode and we're already getting teasers for the agent, I just can't see them releasing the agent midway through the act. Yes, technically Clove came out a month into the act that they released in, but Valorant has been on this trend of releasing a new agent every 5 months, so we're for sure getting it either at the beginning of August or end of August. Now, what role is the new agent going to be? Given that Clove was the most recent addition to the squad, the new agent is very unlikely to be a controller. I think it's also a pretty safe bet to say the agent is not going to be a duelist, in large part because they just had a huge revamp for the current duelist, which makes me think they're going to hold off for a while before giving us another duelist, which leaves 2 roles, Sentinel and Initiator. From what I've seen, Riot hasn't explicitly stated what role the new agent is going to be, which they typically don't, but they have on occasion. A large part of the community is on the Initiator train, and I can definitely see a few reasons for why that is. But there's a few things that, to me, shout Sentinel. With Clove being almost a hybrid of controller and duelist, I actually want to make my stand and say that I think this new agent is going to be a hybrid of Sentinel and Initiator. Barbed wire. That's the first thing that came to mind when I saw the vines coming from the ground in the teaser. For those of you who have never played Rainbow Six, one of the equipment options you get as a defender is barbed wire.
Right now in the game, barbed wire is okay. It can give you a sound cue if they decide to destroy it, or if you're very close and they shuffle through it, it will obviously slow the attacker down and you can swing.
When Fade was initially coming out, I compared the leaks at the time to the abilities of Jackal, a Rainbow Six agent whose abilities could track down defenders by scanning their footprints and then pinging them on the map for a short period of time. While this comparison fell a little short, Deadlock's sound alert system was an ability that was very similar to another Rainbow Six agent, who also has a sound concussion based ability on defense. The point of this is to say that Valorant has taken inspiration from other games, and while they may not directly take from those games, they do work off of the purpose of other abilities and mold them more so to work in Valorant. I think a simple 1-for-1 on barbed wire would probably be pretty useless on Valorant. After all, so many agents have destructive abilities that could easily get rid of the obstacle or avoid it altogether. But because the vines were shown to be coming from the ground and spreading horizontally instead of vertically to form a wall, I think one of the new agent's abilities will be a hazard that spreads itself on the ground and not only slows the enemy down, but also provides another added effect. This is where I have a few differentiating ideas. An ability that slows down opponents would be considered a Sentinel ability if it was stationary, but an Initiator ability if it acts like a concussion. I think there's a high chance this ability is stationary. Once placed or used in a fashion similar to Breach's charge, it would not move and instead linger for a set period of time, making it more so a Sentinel ability. I believe this because Riot needs to create a window to rework Cypher. I won't get too much into it because I think Cypher warrants a separate video by themselves, but given what recently happened to ISO where his abilities were reworked, and then nerfed shortly after because the new abilities had a much bigger impact than Riot expected, I don't think it's going to be too long before Riot targets Cypher next. Cypher for a long time was beginning to fall short, because while his primary role was to slow attackers down, he was failing to adapt with all the new agents that could nullify his abilities. More thoughts on this in another video, but returning to the new agent, this is why I think they will be an agent that slows opponents down. I think in addition, we can look at the other duelists and their reworks, and how much of a need it has created for an agent that can slow opponents down. Riot is not dumb. The recent dev diaries revealed a lot of the thought process that goes behind the moves that Riot makes, which is why I'm confident that the changes Riot has been making to their agents have not only been with the current game state in mind, but also to ensure that new agents have value to players. The speed of players throughout the round has been becoming faster, and Riot's attempts at making Cypher and Deadlock better lay the grounds for them to release an agent that slows enemies down. And again, I want to elaborate really quickly on this part when it comes to why this is an Initiator ability. In large part, most Initiator abilities are to set your team up in a gunfight. Slowing people down doesn't seem like it would be setting anybody up because you're not positively affecting your team. However, you are negatively affecting them, and I think this is how this ability can be viewed as an Initiator ability. Remember, I said the slowing down of agents was a primary effect, but what about the secondary effect? Well, if we go down the Initiator route, I think this agent will reveal opponents who are caught in the vines upon being activated. Currently, Sova and Fade remain being the two agents who can reveal opponents, and I think it makes sense to add another agent who can provide that information. Both Sova and Fade force opponents to shoot their respective abilities to prevent being revealed, and I think the upside to this new agent is that their ability won't be able to be prevented, but will instead require opponents to be more cautious and have the possibility of being revealed in mind. What I mean by this is that while you can shoot a reveal dart or a fade eye, you're not going to be able to shoot the vines that are going to pop up from the ground to reveal your location. It will require players who get spotted to prepare themselves as best as possible, while the user and their allies are better positioned in the gunfight because of the enemy being revealed. Of course, because this ability would eliminate the decision of shooting down something to prevent being spotted, they get the added benefit of holding an angle, but of course you can swing wide or peek two at a time. Continuing with the trend of slowing opponents down, another ability I think they will have is holding the enemy in place with vines. This one wouldn't reveal location directly, but it would require opponents to shoot the vines that hold them to become free instantly or wait until they go away. This ability would be huge in impacting rotations by preventing enemies who are rotating to help on one side from doing so immediately, or by holding enemies to specific positions to allow yourself and your team to rotate. I would argue that this ability would focus more so on range rather than added effects, so while it does hold enemies briefly, it would not concuss them, reveal their locations to your team, or even flash them. It's more so about slowing them down. I did think about whether this agent would have a flash, and while I do think an agent who can gather intel and have a flash would be a good change from what we currently have, because I think they will be a Sentinel hybrid, I think it makes sense for this agent to have an ability that can physically block off a section of the map. Having a throwbow that momentarily creates a bubble similar to Harbor, but instead it's vines, would work as a good cover to help your team push a position, but also block information from your opponents. I also think they could go in the direction of having a physically damaging ability. Also another throwbow, this one shoots out thorns upon contact, and anyone caught in the radius takes damage and is vulnerable for a short period of time. These abilities are less fleshed out. I truly don't know if they will go down the revealing agent side of thing or doing damage, but I do believe that the abilities will focus on slowing the enemy down. I have two ideas for an ultimate. One which physically pushes enemies back, and another that causes damage to them. The first would act like a pulse that once activated would emit itself from the new agent and create a wave of vines that pushes the enemy back from the area surrounding the new agent. A mix of KO and Killjoy's ult in terms of range, but it wouldn't disable abilities, but instead push them back from an area and maybe even stun them. The second ultimate variation would be a damaging ability. Given that the majority of the abilities I discussed weren't doing any damage, I could see this agent having an ultimate that can be used for easier kills on the enemies. While summoning a bunch of vines that can beat up an agent would be really cool and on brand with the theme, we might also see an ultimate like Brim that covers a certain areas and does damage within that area. I think thorns popping up from the ground after a few seconds and instantly doing damage would be cool, but to be honest, I haven't really thought too much about the ultimate ideas either. There's very little to go off of when it comes to this new agent. So that's what I've been gathering for a few weeks now. Again, some of this was stuff I've been observing from Riot over the last few months. Some of this was inspired by the 5 seconds of teasers we got, and a lot of it was honestly on the spot imagination. I'm coming in for a second, because as I was putting this video together, I came across another teaser that I guess I just missed? I think this image just reinforces my current take that the new agent will be focused on slowing down time, or in this case, players during a round. The vines attacking the hourglass to me symbolize an attack on timings, and considering the abilities I discussed focus on slowing players down, I'm actually feeling a little more confident than I initially did. For all I know, I got none of these abilities correct, but that's what I get by releasing this video so far in advance with so little to go off on. I'm sure we'll inevitably get some leaks sometime soon, but definitely let me know in the comments what you think the next agent might look like, what role you think they'll have, abilities, all that good stuff. And if you're here after an official announcement of the agent, let me know if I got any of it right. Thanks for tuning into this video. Go watch everything else I have out, and I'll see y'all for the next one. Peace.